We have a former Home Secretary waiting in the wings.
There's quite a lot of them around.
to talk to us. Yeah, there's quite a lot of former Conservative Home Secretaries during this particular government.
Yeah.
So Suella Braverman is waiting in the wings.
You've got the double former Home Secretary, because she was sacked for security breaches brought back by Rishi Sunak and a dodgy deal to back him to be Prime Minister. And then he sacked her again, this time over inflammatory comments about marchers, pro-Palestinian marchers, which incited the far right, if you remember, were then rampaging and rioting near the cenotaph, apart from all her other offences. Yeah, I know the one
She's going to tell us that it was her dream when she was Home Secretary, to see flights, and still is her dream, to see flights of asylum seekers leaving these shores for Rwanda. And now she's saying that the only way that she thinks that could happen would be if we were to leave the European Court of Human Rights.
That's her dream. Well, what about having a dream for world peace, ending poverty, finding a cure for cancer, getting families reunited? Your dream, or even winning the lottery. Your dream is strapping some people on a flight to Rwanda.
She was Home Secretary and she wanted to try to stop the scourge of illegal migration. Very noble, very laudable, and she thought the Rwanda thing would be the way to do it. And she's convinced that even when this bill goes through, which it will this week almost certainly, that the European Court will meddle and stick its nose in again. And so she's of the view of, and many Tory MPs share that view, we've got to keep them out of it.
Minority Tory MPs.
A lot of people think that, and a lot of people want to see those planes go because just maybe they'll act as a deterrent. Maybe.
Does she want to strap on those planes people who fought with British forces in Afghanistan?
I think they should change that.
The House of Lords keeps saying they should not go, and the government is saying we want to send them. Is that part of her dream?
Well, I would agree with that, because I think there should be an exclusion for the Afghan interpreters who risked their lives for us. They should not, if they come here across the boats, they should not be sent to Rwanda. They should automatically be allowed to come here.
Is it going to pass? Because the House of Lords made a number of amendments.
They did. I think the Afghan one will be the sticking point, and I think that's a big issue. But I think it will pass, and it will pass this week. When
you say it'll be a sticking point, I mean the Commons would have to agree to incorporate that into the bill.
I hear that they might.
Well, if you're right and it does pass this week, when do you think we'd see the first plane taking off?
Well, I hope next week or tomorrow.
Well, you hope,
but it won't.
That's your dream. But, but when do you think it might happen?
Well, they've got to organise the transport, or they should have organised that in the next matter of weeks.
It won't happen in the next matter of weeks, because there will be individual legal claims within the British legal system. Because you say, I've been wrongly selected. But the summer at the earliest now, the summer at the... They'll disappear before then. That's what will happen.
They've selected them already, and they've selected them on the basis they hope it will limit the scope for an appeal.
Suella Braverman joins us now from Westminster. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
If this bill passes, will your dream be recognised this week of seeing flights taking off to Rwanda?
Well, thank you for inviting me onto the show. I believe the bill is fatally flawed. That's why I took the difficult decision earlier this year to vote against it in the Commons at third reading. I don't believe it's going to provide the deterrent that we need to stop the boats. What we need to see is regular flights being sent off to Rwanda with large numbers of illegal migrants on those flights. That's how we send the message to the people smuggling gangs, to those who are seeking to come here illegally, that they won't get a life in the UK by doing so. I'm afraid...
Why have you changed your mind on it? Because, of course, you even went to Rwanda when you were Home Secretary, smiling in front of the accommodation for those asylum seekers and insisting the country was safe and the plan would work.
Oh, I insist. I do maintain that Rwanda is a safe country, and the principle of the scheme is something I support. I do believe that by getting regular flights off to Rwanda, we will stop the boats. That's how largely the Australians were able to stop their illegal maritime migration problem, by sending people offshore. So I do believe in the principle. What I disagree with is how this government is going about delivering on that scheme.
Why do you think we have to leave the European Court of Human Rights to get this thing off the ground, as it were?
Well, this is our third bill. This is our third Act of Parliament now over the last 4 or 5 years that the government has introduced to try and stop the boats. it's failed. The government has tried to do this within the confines of the European Convention of Human Rights, and it's not worked. I believe now the only way to actually ensure that flights can get off, the boats can be stopped, and actually we can take back control of our borders and our laws is to leave the jurisdiction of the European Court of Human Rights, which is in Strasbourg, which is stopping us from controlling our borders. We saw in June 2022 how the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg intervened to block the flights from taking off. That's an example, one of many examples, of how interventionist this court is, how interventionist and obstructive the European Convention on Human Rights is.
But the point of the European Convention on Human Rights is to protect people's human rights. So when they see a breach of human rights, that's when they'll intervene. Isn't that, that surely is an international principle we would want to uphold?
I don't disagree with the principle of human rights. I believe fundamentally in civil liberties and human rights. And much of the text of the European Convention on Human Rights is noble and something I support. What my problem is the court. The judges in Strasbourg, in the European Court of Human Rights, have interpreted the convention and the document in a distorted, politicised and wholly unpredictable way. So, for example, just recently, we saw the Court of Human Rights apply a bizarre judgment which imposed net zero policies on the Swiss government, despite a referendum in Switzerland, whereby the Swiss people voted against such policies. That's one example. Illegal migration and asylum is another one, where, unfortunately, as Home Secretary, I saw it firsthand. As a barrister working in the courts before I was an MP, I saw it firsthand. We're not allowed and able to deport terrorists because of the European Convention of Human Rights. We're not able to deport paedophiles and foreign drug dealers because of the European Court of Human Rights. That's why, and on a whole host of other policy reasons, we need to now leave the European Convention on Human Rights so that we can design our own domestic human rights regime and framework. The English courts and English judges have the final say, and we're not subject to a foreign court, which is totally undermining this government's ability to control migration.
Well, speaking of human rights, let's change the record now. What do you make of the position of the head of the Met this morning? You said in the newspapers yesterday you think that he should resign, Mark Rowley. Talking of human rights, because of the apparent lack of the right for Jewish people to walk where they want to walk when they want to go there in London.
Yes, I've made that statement because, and it gives me no pleasure to do so, but I think there is a crisis now within the Metropolitan Police. My complaint, let me be clear, is not against those individual officers on the ground. Thousands of them are working day in, day out to police a really difficult situation on these marches. This is about the orders that they're being given. This is about the leadership. As I said, there's a crisis of confidence in the Met because this has been going on for 6 months. They failed to stop extremism, Islamism, anti-Semitism and hatred on our streets of Britain. These have become a weekly occurrence, and every time these marches happen, London becomes a no-go zone for Jewish people. Police resource, valuable police resources being diverted to police and manage these marches so that we can't get a police officer to turn up if there's a burglary. We can't get a police officer to turn up if there's a knife crime incident in London. This is not a sustainable situation, and I'm afraid we've had speeches, we've had reviews, we've had apologies, we've had apologies for the apologies. This is out of control now, and if the head of the Met Police is not willing or able to change approach and take heed of the warnings and the complaints, then I'm afraid he has to make way for someone else who can.
What do you make of the actions of the man in question, Gideon Falker, who we'll be talking to later on the programme? Our viewers seem somewhat divided about him. Some think that he performed an extremely valuable public service in showing where the problems lay. Others say that he was being a little disingenuous and was, if you like, seeking to stir up trouble. What do you make about it?
Well, I think the incident involving Gideon shone a light on what's been happening for the last 6 months, and this encapsulates what's gone wrong. The police are fearful of an anti-Semitic attack, or anti-Semitic attacks generally, attacks on someone because they're Jewish. The way they've chosen to deal with that threat is to say to the innocent Jewish person, you must not cross the road, you must give up your rights, and we're going to arrest you if you don't listen to us. I think that's a total inversion of right and wrong. What the police should be doing is saying, right, we think there's a threat of anti-Semitic attack here. We're going to confront that threat. We're going to confront those people who we think may attack you because you're Jewish. We're going to warn them that if they attack you, they'll be arrested. That's what the police should be doing.
Well,
not...
for that, they need more bodies on the beat, don't they? Because it was quite obvious in the confrontation that took place 2 Saturdays ago that the police felt that they would be outnumbered if a confrontation developed with the demonstrators.
Well, if that's the case, then the police should be banning the march. If they feel that they don't... If the answer to this problem cannot be that the only way to stop anti-Semitic violence or anti-Semitic attacks is to arrest the innocent Jewish civilian. That cannot be the answer. If the answer is we don't have the resource, then the Met Commissioner has the power to apply to the Home Secretary to ban the march. It cannot be right that the Met Commissioner says we are going to allow and protect the rights of the anti-Semitic thugs, for want of a better word. It's not everybody on the march, but those people they fear will carry out these attacks. We're going to protect their rights to intimidate and harass. And everybody else, Jewish or non-Jewish, but innocent and not taking part in the march, they've got to go away. They've got to give up their rights.
2 questions, Suella Braverman. Do you defend the right of the peaceful protesters to protest? And secondly, what should happen to Mark Rowley, the Met Commissioner, in your view?
I do believe in the right to peaceful protest. I think it's a foundation of our democracy. But the point is that these marches cannot be peaceful if they've reached the point where the police fear anti-Semitic attacks that they can't handle and they're telling Jewish people to stay away from. That suggests that these marches have reached a threshold whereby they are unmanageable and that they are hateful to a large degree. And what should happen to Sir Mark? Well, listen, as I've said, I think he should go. I think that the Home Secretary, the Prime Minister, need to show leadership here. I don't think that it's sustainable for him to be carrying on in this position. As I said, £32 million worth of Met money has gone towards these marches. 30,000 police officer shifts have been directed to this. 5,000 officer rest days have been cancelled to police these marches. No wonder you can't get a police officer if you get mugged in London.
Whose government is that under?
Most of them are policing these marches.
Where we're short-handed on police officers.
Well, the Metropolitan Police are operationally independent. No minister can govern or intervene on the tactics and the operational decisions that the Met Commissioner makes to police certain incidents. That is wholly within his gift. That's why the buck stops with him, and I'm afraid he needs to go.
All right, Suella Braverman, thank you very much for your time
Kevin
this morning.
and Andrew, quick comment.
I think it's appalling that that man was not allowed to go about his daily...
Agreed.
Really appalling, and I don't think he was being unnecessarily provocative. And I was shocked that the police officer was remonstrating while all that anti-Semitic abuse was being heaped at him, and he didn't even say to the protesters, "Lay off."
Gideon Faulkner's performed a public service because we're having this debate. I don't think the Met head has to go, the Commissioner. I think that's an escalation, but the big questions to be had. But if you watch a longer exchange, Sky News have got it online, you'll see it's more nuanced than the way it's been presented.